Hi, everybody. Welcome to Video Couple Reviews. We're going to be reviewing the new Dune movie. I have with me Jim Ferguson, Tiffany Ferguson.
The sleeper has awakened.
The sleeper has awakened, yes. I really like this movie. So this movie's directed by, and I'm never going to get his name right, Denis Villeneuve? Villeneuve? Yeah, he's a Canadian director. He's done Blade Runner 2049, Sicario, and The Arrival, plus a whole bunch more.
Prisoners, Incendies.
Yes. Yeah, I haven't seen Prisoners or Incendies.
You haven't seen?
No, wow, no. That was such a surprise that Tiffany's mic went straight out.
Sorry.
I'll have to go check that out. But I was a really big fan of Blade Runner and a really big fan of Sicario. And then when I heard he did Dune, I was very, very excited about this movie. So if you're not aware of Dune, Dune is a sci-fi movie where there's a spice that basically is the lifeblood of the entire universe. It's how they can do space travel. And we have two major houses that are in conflict for this planet called
Arrakis.
Arrakis. I was just drawing a blank there. House Harkonnen and House Atreides. And the Emperor runs the universe, and then there's some political battles, and it's a fantastic movie. I'm blown away by this movie. Jim, what did you think about this?
Yeah, so my spoiler-free review for anybody that hasn't seen it yet. It did come out in October, but it's not available till streaming until later in January, I think, in the US, and not till March in Canada. You can pay for it video on demand, but it's not available on the monthly service streaming till later on here. So still timely if you haven't seen it and you plan on looking at it. This is a movie that definitely lends itself to a theater viewing experience. If you can still get out to a theater that's screening it, do it. So my little rant here before I give my spoiler free review is I am a massive Frank Herbert Dune fan. I watched the 1984 David Lynch version of the movie as a kid and have seen it multiple times, and it's critically panned and does not hold up now at all, but I still love it. Holds a special place in my heart. I saw that before I read the novels because I was only 4 when the first movie came out.
The David Lynch film? The
David Lynch film. I've read the book, the novel, Frank Herbert Dune. Since then, many times I have read the sequels to that were all done by Frank Herbert. I've read Children of Dune and God Emperor of Dune. I also love the 2000 BBC miniseries of the Dune miniseries based on the Dune trilogy of books, starring James McAvoy, even though that again was critically panned. Loved it. And I've since done the audiobooks since then. So I'm a huge Dune fan. I love everything Dune. I've watched the documentary, Yarodowski's Dune, who was the guy who tried to make Dune in the 70s and spent years and years and years on it. And he had Geiger design all the artwork for it. Geiger, who then went on to do Aliens and design the actual xenomorphs in Aliens. Very specific art style he has. So there's a really cool documentary on basically how that movie did not get made, but it would have been crazy and epic if it had been made. And then Denis Villeneuve is my favorite actor or my favorite director working today. He has every movie he does is just genius. He's one of those few directors who has the ability to make a blockbuster level and visual movie, but still make it seem like it's art house. Every shot he has is just, you could tell it's just so good. Can't say enough good things about it. If you haven't seen anything by Denis Villeneuve, go and check it out. But yeah, Dune is great. See it in theaters if you can. So
that's your rant.
So my review of the movie is that I loved it. I really like this version of it. It's a very, very hard to adapt movie. It's definitely Dune is much better source material as a book because there's so much lore, so much backstory.
Yeah.
And to adapt it into a film requires so much exposition, which is why every other version gets kind of critically panned. This version, out of all of the versions that have come out, has done the best.
By far.
Simply, yet quickly and effectively explaining the backstory of all of the houses and the political rivalries and who is who and what their roles are. So even if you don't know Frank Herbert's Dune, you still are not completely lost. There's some exposition in the beginning, but it's not a lot, yet they still do it very succinctly, which is really nice. then you get into the actual movie itself, and it looks amazing. The acting by Timothy Chalamet, Rebecca Ferguson, and Oscar Isaacs is unreal. They do such a good job of the Atreides family. So the main family in the movie, Paul Atreides, played by Timothy Chalamet, and his mother and father, Rebecca Ferguson and Oscar Isaacs. The Duke Atreides, the patron of the house. So yeah, they were really good. The movie itself, like, I will say, just as a kind of preface, this is not a full movie. It is part one of an intended, I guess, duology or trilogy. I think it's just going to be 2 movies. Honestly, it wasn't marketed in any way, shape, or form that this was going to be a Dune part 1. So it just came out. The trailers were just Dune, and then you actually see it in theaters, and the title credit rolls up, and it says Dune Part 1. You're like, oh, okay.
I like that.
My only real gripe with the movie is just where they chose to end the movie. I mean, I knew it was going to end, obviously, right in the beginning of the movie. I'm like, okay, it's going to end. It's just, it seemed to me it ended in a very weird spot. They could have ended it like 20 minutes earlier, and me knowing how the story goes, could have went 20 minutes later, and it would have been a better ending, I thought, either way. It just seemed a very strange, kind of just almost like the second into the third Hobbit movie, where it's just them like walking up a set of stairs, or just like a really weird spot to end a film with like the main character being just on a walk. But yeah, I don't really have anything bad to say about this movie. I love that it's hard sci-fi, very, very hard sci-fi. It's a grungy, dirty movie that still somehow looks beautiful. The scale of everything, every shot he shoots of something that's massive in scale, he always has something small next to it to show you like an actual size. So you'll have like a person standing next to a giant ship, so you can see how big the ship actually is. Or you'll have Timothy Chalamet framed in the same shot as a creature that you'll find out if you see the movie about, but basically showing how massive these creatures are. So he shows scale really, really well by comparing everything that's massive to something that you actually know the scale of just inherently in your day-to-day life.
I have more to add to that as well for some interesting facts.
So yeah, all the actors, the performances, so good. I really like this movie a lot. Josh Brolin, awesome in it. He plays a really cool guy, which he always plays a really cool guy, and he does it again really well.
Yeah.
Jason Momoa is in this, and he is great in his role as Duncan Idaho.
It was good to see him in a role that had a camp attached to it. He was just his role was perfect. I would love to see him in more roles like that, because I think he could do it.
Mm-hmm.
It was good. It was nice to see a difference.
Yeah. Anyways, that's really all I'm gonna say about it, is that it's very, very good. Go see it. It is long. It is a slower movie because it's a build up to something else that's coming. Oh, and if you want to see Zendaya a lot, if that's what you're like going to see this for, she is not prominent in this part 1 of the movie. No. She is mostly seen in the
latter part.
Not even that. She's mostly seen in dream sequences. Thank you. So she's here and there. She has a couple lines, but that's really it. She will be prominently figured in the second movie for sure, assuming they greenlight and go ahead with a second movie, which I don't even know if they actually have done that. So I don't know if somebody can look that up while we're chatting away. But I don't
see why they wouldn't.
It's how crazy that you can't even give a guy like Denis Villeneuve, who's got such a good track record of making successful, great movies, the greenlight on a 2-part series right away. They're just, it's
depends on the cost, and I have more to it. Like it's
pandemic, obviously, for sure factors in all that stuff too, right? So, anyways, that's my review. Rob, I'll let you go now.
Oh, may I real quick?
Sure.
Yeah.
I saw this movie as somebody who like knows nothing about it. I've never read any books. I knew about like the creatures, I think, and I knew there was spice involved. I didn't know what that meant. And I found it like pretty easy to follow. I was also sitting beside my mom, who's like a pretty hardcore Dune fan. She was so stoked on seeing this movie, so she would kind of like whisper things and explain to me a little bit more when I was confused. I super enjoyed it. Obviously, the cast is incredible, and I would absolutely see a sequel. Here's what I'm trying to figure that out. It says Timothy Chalamet will write a stand.
So head in. So Dune 2 confirmed. You've just read it online. Dune 2 is confirmed. We're putting this in here now. Awesome.
So my review, I was very, very excited for this movie. I was curious. Like Jim, I was a fan of this whole series, not to the level he was. I remember, funny little side note, playing the video game in his house, in his basement, and loving that game, and sending little harvesters out to get spice and the whole 9 yards. Anyways, I was very excited. The actors, the cast is huge. There's such a giant breadth of experience in this cast. There's so many fantastic actors. Like Stellan Skarsgård's character is crazy.
So good.
And it was fantastic. It was a fun game. So this movie for me this hit a certain sweet spot that I'm, as Jim and Tiff, can be super cavalier about some movies or very, very overcritical. This movie to me was probably one of the most beautiful movies I've ever seen. On top of just how stunning this movie is, scenery-wise, costume-wise, acting, just the pure aesthetics. The music for me is its own character. It is so fantastic and unique that I will probably download it on or get it in any way and pay for it on is the best quality I can ever find. This is a fantastic movie. I love that it was portrayed, as Jim said, it was very smart, the way they went about showing you what the plot was. It wasn't one of the movies where it's like it smashed the facts in your face, and this is like what you have to pay to. It was very, very clever. The way they interacted, the way they talked about stuff, the way they tie in lore and story with talking about a grandfather and history and stuff like that. It all kind of played it in without smacking you in the face with paying attention to what it was.
Well, the books have
there's so much.
Lore.
There's so much. Like even David Lynch's movie, which does not stand up to today. It's still a fun movie for me. He even said it is cut to shit. It is cut to pieces.
Well, the David Lynch movie had a voiceover at the very beginning of a princess explaining, like for 5 minutes lore before the movie even starts.
It felt like Labyrinth,
that's how much,
or it felt like Never-Ending Story.
That was the way around. That's the way around. Everybody else has been on the exposition. Just let's have somebody talk for 5 minutes and explain what this world's all about.
Yeah. So these characters, the actors, like Josh Brolin's character is so intense in a couple spots. Like it is, without going to spoil, he can be so intense but so smart, and it's just every character in this movie is fantastic. This probably is the best iteration that I think anybody will ever do of this movie. If they ever decide to do another one, I don't think anybody will ever come close touching it. Hopefully the second one, will stay in the same vein and run this way. If that's the case, then I have
zero concern about him if he's doing it.
So for me, like Denis Villeneuve, Sicario is another movie where totally different style, but the music was so present and being part of the storytelling, and it seemed like it was its own entity in the movie, and that's exactly what this is in Dune. So like a funny little side thing is Zimmerman invented musical instruments for this movie. He made stuff specifically for the Harkonnen home planet. The percussion, like he made synthesizers specifically that hadn't been done before to give a different feel, a more unique feel to this movie. It didn't want to use typical sound samplings. We wanted something completely different. And
same too with the Mandalorian. That's what they did with that as well, because you have to create a different sound that
so
bring you back to Earth, right?
So he went and created instruments specifically for the soundtrack and the orchestral, the whole narrative, or musical narrative, I should say, for this movie.
IMDb it says that Hans Zimmer is a big fan of the novel Dune, and he turned down working with Christopher Nolan to score the film.
So Christopher Nolan was trying to make a Dune movie?
Yeah,
Christopher Nolan wanted to score it.
I think he wanted to score it with Hans Zimmer. It's kind of a confusing quote. And then it says Denis Villeneuve. What's his name? Villeneuve.
Yeah, Denis Villeneuve.
Denis Villeneuve was the top choice, but turned down the offer to direct James Bond.
If he directed a James Bond, that could be crazy.
Yeah, I want to see Denis Villeneuve do hard sci-fi all day long. Sci-fi.
So to add to just how the movie itself is fantastic, like all of it. I like they brought some of the old stuff in. Yeah, there it is. Stunning isn't quite a strong enough word for this movie for me. Like the costumes.
Okay, well, let's get into the spoiler stuff.
Okay, some of the. Okay.
It's good. It's amazing. Go see it. That's the review.
Yeah.
The sequel comes out October 20th, 2020.
Ooh.
Asterisks with any changes due to pandemic and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Because this movie was delayed to shit. The first part was delayed so many times. Right. So we're gonna play our first episode of the Rotten Tomatoes show, which is a game show we've stolen that has us guess the Rotten Tomatoes score. And the closest to the score, you get a point for every percentage point you were off from the critic's aggregate score. So, example, if the critic gives a movie 70% and I guess 80, I get 10 points. If I guess 60, I also get 10 points. The lower score at the end of the game wins the game. If you get the score bang on, you get a negative 5-point deduction.
Like goal.
I forgot that I have to keep score, so that could be a problem because I'm a little buzzed. So you said the theme is Dune, right?
Yes, I said the theme was Dune.
Great. I have 5 Dune themed questions, loosely Dune themed. The first question.
How did you have those 15 questions all ready to go?
Not 15. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, question number 1. David Lynch directed Dune in 1984, I believe. He also directed a little movie called Eraserhead. What did Eraserhead get on Rotten Tomatoes? The box office score was, I believe, 7 million. Eraserhead.
I've seen Eraserhead, so I know.
I saw it with you. You showed it to me when I was a kid, and I loved it. It also scarred me for life. This movie was 1977, by the way, if that matters to you.
Who's going first? And you're welcome.
Jim, you go first because you introduced me to Eraserhead.
I'm going to guess 75%.
75%.
I know of this movie. I can't say if I've seen it.
What?
Who's in it? You heard me. Who's in it?
Good question. 1977.
I don't know that it's really anybody.
What's the premise of the movie again? Just tell me that much.
John Nance is in it. So, okay, Henry resides alone in a bleak apartment surrounded by industrial gloom. When he discovers that an earlier fling with Mary X, Charlotte Stewart, left her pregnant, he marries the expectant mother and has her move in with him. Things take a decidedly strange turn when the couple's baby turns out to be a bizarre lizard-like creature that won't stop wailing. Other characters include a disfigured lady who lives inside a radiator, inhabit the building, and add to Henry's troubles. So it's a horror movie directed by David Lynch, 1977.
Okay, I'm going to say...
It's nuts.
I think I've probably seen
And it's black and white.
Yeah, I'm going to say 56.
56. All right, so the answer is 90%. I also need someone with a calculator because I can't do simple math.
Did you write down what our guesses were at least?
Yeah. You said 75. Rob said 56. The answer is 90. So I just need someone to tell me.
Okay, so I got 15 points.
Yeah, that much I got.
And Rob got 34 points.
Question number 2. Dune starring Timothée Chalamet. He also starred in a movie called Call Me By Your Name with that guy who, like, I don't know if you guys read about this at the time, but the other guy in the movie, I can't remember, but he played like the Winklevoss twins in the Facebook movie, and he was like texting women like weird cannibalistic kink texts, super weird. So I think he's canceled now. What score did this have on Rotten Tomatoes? This movie was 2017 box office score of 41.9 million.
Rob gets to go first this time.
Rob, yeah, you go first, Rob.
82.
I'm going to give Call Me By Your Name a 90.
You guys are really close. The answer is 94. So Jim, that is 4 points. So you've got
I was going to say 95.
19.
Dang it.
And Rob, that's 12 points, I think. Somebody should really back this up. So I think your total score is 46.
Didn't
Jim,
see
19.
It, but I didn't see the movie, but Timothée Chalamet won a Oscar for it, right?
I don't know. Probably.
I believe.
Got a good score. All right, job. So next is a Denis Villeneuve question. What is the movie? Okay, so this is the French Canadian. This is the first movie that I could find that he directed that has a Rotten Tomatoes score. It's called Maelstrom. The year was 2000, and it had a box office budget of $254,380.
This is before Polytechnic.
I think so. He had like some other stuff before that, but it didn't have a Rotten Tomatoes score. But I don't
it was like short. It was like short films and stuff.
Okay, Jim, you go first.
I didn't see Maelstrom, but because it's Denis Villeneuve, I'm gonna say 80%.
Okay, Rob.
84.
Again, really good job, guys. It was 79. So Jim, that was 1 point.
I was actually gonna go downwards. I was like, no.
Only because it was like, I think it was a student film, probably, right? So
probably. So Jim, you've got a total score of 20. Rob, you're at 51. Two questions left. So
dude, we got pretty low scores after 3 movies.
You guys are doing much better. So the next movie, what was my thing here? Oh yeah, so Hans Zimmer was a composer in Dune, and he was also a composer in the movie Twister, 1998.
1997.
I was gonna say 96,
close. But box office was 241.7 million for Twister. Jim, you go first. What was the?
No, Rob gets to go first this time.
Oh, is it?
I'm gonna say 76.
76.
Like Van Halen was in the soundtrack for this as well.
Okay, and Jim?
This is a movie about twisters, not tornadoes. I'm gonna say 82%.
82.
Some of that dry humor.
So the answer is 61.
Ooh.
So Rob, you said 76.
Yep.
What's the math on that?
So you said 61?
The answer is 61. Rob said 76.
So Rob got 15 points. 15 points.
No.
And Jim, you said 82.
I got 21. So we had a 6 point come up.
Okay, so Jim, you're at 41. Rob, you're at 66. Last question 41-66.
25 point spread.
Last question is a Jason Momoa question. Conan the Barbarian. Let me bring up my score.
I've seen that movie.
Have you really?
Yep.
What year was that? I want to say 2011. Conan the Barbarian. Box office was 63.5 million. Jim,
I'm going first, don't I?
You're going first, Jim.
I'm going to say 40%. Now Rob has to go 25 at least off me.
You bastard, because I had a number there, and you're pretty much almost hit my number right on the head there. Dang it! All right, I'm going to go 22.
22. The answer is 25. So Rob,
if I'd actually done 25, like Jim said, it would go to 25 point spread.
Rob, you're at 69. Jim,
you needed to get it bang on. In fact, that was the only way you could have won.
Jim, you said 40, and the answer was 25. What is that? 35?
No, that's 15.
15. I'm really buzzed. I can't do math. I can do addition. I can't do subtraction.
I sense a spreadsheet template coming.
No.
Both,
so Jim,
both are math.
Yeah, I know. I can only do one. Jim, your answer is 56. Rob, your final answer is 69.
Okay, so getting into spoiler territory, I want to give some interesting facts about, you touched upon it, the scale in this movie. So we'll talk about the costumes. There was over 1,000 costumes made for this movie. Unique costumes for everything, 1,000. Just to go for it. Stellan Skarsgård spent to do the Duke or the Harkonnen, the Baron, sorry, is over 80 hours he spent in the makeup chair to get that physique and everything else. And to add to that, to the music and sound, every scene that the Baron's in is crazy. It feels tense. The lights that pop up on his spine, it's just crazy noise, and then he floats. It's just completely unique. It's just
Skarsgård. He wanted more nude scenes. Did you guys see that?
No.
he wanted more nude scenes because he thought he was like more imposing of a character, nude and huge, and
giant, naked. Yeah.
And he's huge. Like he's monstrously
big. The Baron is naked in the book, and also I actually don't remember if this is in the novelization, but in the David Lynch movie, the Baron kills one of his servants right in the beginning, and
eats him.
Implied that he drinks his blood, but he has a heart plug installed in all of his servants. No.
So they spend a lot of time building those platforms to give scale, and it really shows and feels it. It just really lended to the story. They built a lot of these sets in Budapest, to get that feel to the terrain and everything else. And it was to help bring the inspiration to the movie, according to Villeneuve. But apparently it was a very, very hard shoot. Being on the desert, being in that heat, doing that stuff, apparently it stripped all the actors' egos. And I think even Josh Brolin said, basically the desert heat doesn't give you room for egos. It's just you're there to do it. Everybody's on the same level playing field. Everybody's suffering. It's hard for everybody. So it's hard for the actors. It's hard for the cameraman. It's hard for the boom. It's hard for every single person that's out there. So there's no room for egos because they're just dying of heat all the time.
Yeah. Well, it's good. I mean, it's a representation of what the environment that they're actually supposed to be in, right? So it makes it a little easier to method that. It
certainly lended to that. And then the last thing, which I thought was pretty crazy, Timothée Chalamet's acting apparently made Denis Villeneuve cry. And not for sadness, he was legitimately, he took a risk on him. He's I don't know how he would be, because he's quite a bit smaller physically. So he was quite worried that he would not be physically imposing enough to play the role. But Timothy's acting was so amazing that Denise there, he's just Denis was he cried tears of joy. He said he took a risk and it paid off bigger than he expected.
Yeah, I mean the character of Paul Atreides is supposed to be 15. So
in the books, yes.
Yeah.
But by comparison, everything else, and then you want a hero role. You want this, opposing figure when they need to be opposing, and Timothy doesn't look opposing, although he looks very muscular for his size. It turned out really well. I mean, and just the music I keep coming back to the music. It's just fantastic.
Anything else that you think was fantastic, or?
Depends. I don't know. I don't have much else to say about this other than I think everybody should see this movie.
Yeah, I mean, just so going into spoiler territory for me.
I guess we got that still to do.
Yeah, we're just talking about some of the stuff, right? So, there's nothing really to spoil in the beginning of the movie when they're on their home planet. The scene with the Bene Gesserit coming and testing him and putting his hand in the box of pain was really well done. They actually did that really well in even the David Lynch version. very similar. Even the same like lines were used, taken directly from the original source material. But the planet, like just seeing how like the planet of Caladan like looked and was all lush and green and like very much like the cliffs of Scotland, kind of thing, right? And they all played bagpipes when they left the ships coming into the coming onto Arrakis. But then like they get to like the Arrakis city, and it's just such a weird layout of the city. Like it was all kind of almost like bunkers, like all like just a huge city of bunkers all connected to each other. And I loved like the juxtaposition of like high tech. Like there was a bunch of high tech equipment like spaceships and like, you know, interstellar travel, but then also they have to shut the doors of like their pyramid home base with like two dudes manually rotating the doors. Like,
it had a very like kind of like pyramid, like almost Aztec feeling of pyramids to protect like the city from the weather.
Probably has something to do with like the dirt, dust, how it like erodes maybe. Yeah. But like just the fact that they had two people manually shut the doors, like not a button in this high tech like space age science fiction world I love that kind of stuff. And just all the harvesters, the spaceships, like I have referenced to all those things because of the video game we actually played, right? Like I knew the names of them all from the video game. Like, oh, you have to build an ornithopter. It costs 600 resource credits. So the
ornithopters are funny. Like the city yourself is when he's walking through, the palm trees are there. And what I really like, what I find so fantastic about that scene is the aesthetics. Like the guy watering the plants has this crazy like hood shield over him that keeps it, but it's off of his head, so it's just space, so there's details into that. And all the pilgrims are in what looks to be like a prison, but is ornate bars, and there's this crazy detail to even just the physical bars that separate them from the main courtyard or anything else. There's really ornate and beautiful, but they're prison bars, which was kind of like a juxtaposition, like they're locked up, but everything in the surrounding is just kind of crazy.
But I don't think they're actually even like locked.
I don't know if they were or not.
I think they were just locked out of the courtyard of the palace or whatever, right? Or whatever.
Yeah, you know, the bars were saying, like, they took the time to show them through the bars. They took the detail in the bars. Like, it's this. Everything about this movie has so much detail. The sandworms. I mean, you saw them in the trailer, so I mean, it's not a huge spoiler. But the sandworms were a much, much better represented. They were much better represented in this movie than the David Lynch one. I kind of watched some of the clips again, and the David Lynch ones are these weird three-mouth things. They look like floppy sock puppets, kind of. They move kind of herky-jerky, but these ones here they're fantastic. There's another one for you, but they're crazy.
I've counted nine now.
Yeah. I have to find it. I have to expand my lexicon here and get some different words.
Yeah, so scenes, like, I don't really have anything really, I mean, like, for me,
there's a lot of scenes. Yeah.
It's so accurate to the books and other versions of it that I know about to go through, and like, it was well done. There wasn't anything that was really done incorrectly. To touch more on like what I thought about like the point where it ended, just how they link up with the Fremen and they start walking across the rocks to go to the Siege, and it just ends while they're on a walk. If they had ended it, they could have ended it either earlier, before they kind of linked up with the Fremen and did the knife fight, just like Jessica and Paul like walking into the desert. Are they going to survive? I don't know. Tune in next time. Or they could have went a little further. When they arrive at the Siege, some cool stuff happens. They could have ended. There's a good spot there where you could actually end it. It just seemed like a weird spot to end it. Like if they just added 15 minutes or took away 15 minutes, it would have been a better point of cutting it that wasn't so kind of clunky. But
I like the way it ended there.
Only gripe of the movie. So everything else, I have zero gripes.
I kind of like it because I don't know if he's intended to. I kind of took it as it's a transfer of his old life and the old way of doing things. And getting through that siege where they were, and him having to have the fight to the death with the one guy, and now is the next transition from the old way of doing things, old way of houses, old way of Atreides.
His old life is over, his new life is beginning.
And he's on the path. He's not there yet, because he hasn't even 100%, because he still has to go back to the siege with them. So it's like, it's stopping, like it's right at the transfer point of switching over to his new life.
Yeah.
A new way of living and doing things. So I kind of like the way it ended there. And if that was what they intended, then I got it. But yeah, the fight was pretty crazy. And I want to ask you this, Jim, because you're probably much more knowledgeable to lore and the Vision. And the Vision, he sees himself getting stabbed, and he has to die before he can awaken. But in the fight with the Fremen to the death, he does it. He ends up killing that guy, not by choice, but he does.
But what he saw in this vision was him holding a knife and then having blood on his hands.
So, but there was a scene where it saw that he got in the abdomen. He got stabbed in the abdomen. Now, was his vision, or was that his mind thinking about he's going to get stabbed? Because it showed a scene.
Yeah, I don't believe. I believe it was just a representation of him getting blood on his hands in the fight with the other guy. Someone's going to hand me a knife. I know, no, but I'm saying that's a representation of what actually happened, which was him killing somebody else.
So,
he represented it. He thought it was him dying. That was his interpretation.
His visions aren't 100% accurate.
Well, they're open to interpretation, right? They're,
okay,
they're like
that's what I'm driving at. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm driving at from the lore. Like it's not verbatim. It's kind of, like you said, it's open to interpretation. Because at one point we were like, is that supposed to happen? And that's the one thing that it wasn't quite clear to me. Maybe I missed something, but it's like, okay, so I guess it's open to kind of this way, that way kind of thing. But you are far more knowledgeable about the lore and everything else about that. So
the other versions on film also have lots of voiceover. Like you hear Paul Atreides' inner dialogue a lot in the original movies.
Oh,
like
really?
You hear what he's
fears the mind killer. Fears the mind killer.
Fears the little death.
Fears the little death that brings
the sleeper must awaken. And it's like it's so often that it's like, oh man. But like again, they couldn't think of a better way to do it back in that time period, right? So
they didn't do a lot of that, which was nice. They kind of said that phrase like once or twice, and they didn't like fear is the mind killer. That was like you said, it was uttered so many times in the David Lynch one, but it's only uttered like 2 or 3 times this movie tops.
Well, it was his mom saying it while he was being tested, not him saying it over and over again in inner dialogue. We couldn't hear what he was thinking while he was getting his hand burned off, right? So I like that.
The voice in this movie is crazy. And Jessica Ferguson?
Rebecca Ferguson.
Rebecca Ferguson.
The lady Jessica.
Lady Jessica. Yeah, when she uses the voice, she is scary. Like, it is intense. And she can fight. And Harvey Bardem's character is like, well, why didn't you tell me you were a weirding woman and you were a fighter? She's like, what is it? The conversation didn't allow for it, or time didn't allow for it? Harvey Bardem's character is he's so fun.
Javier
Bardem.
I wonder if this movie is going to have in part 2 the weirding modules. If you remember those from the David Lynch movie. Of course. They were the new Atreides sonic weapon that their soldiers were learning to use, where they could use sound as a weapon. And then Paul Atreides teaches all the Fremen how to use them. Oh. And they go like, and they like blow up rocks and shit.
One guy says Muad'Dib, which is his name, and he loses control and he blows up something. Even his name can kill. Something like that.
Yes, that's the exact line. Even his name can. All right, well, I give it 90. I give it 9.8 out of 10. Almost a perfect movie. So again,
I don't give anything a 10, and this is 9.8. Like it's a great movie.
I agree.
Well, OC.
Well, OC.
Ta-ta.